You know that moment when fear grips you so tight that you make the exact decision you swore you'd never make? When panic overrides everything you know is right? Well, 900 years old, a small green Jedi Master became, and the most profound lesson about conquering fear he left us, one that modern psychologists are just now catching up to. Welcome to the Modern Sages. Ancient wisdom, modern application. Today, how a puppet from 1980 accidentally became the greatest Stoic philosopher in film history, why his backwards advice actually works, and your 2-minute practice to break the fear to suffering chain tonight. Picture this, 1980. George Lucas needs a wise mentor for Luke Skywalker, not just someone who teaches lightsaber tricks, but someone who can guide a young man through the deepest psychological battles. What Lucas created wasn't just a character. He accidentally crafted the most accessible Stoic philosopher of the modern era. Dr. William Stevens, a philosophy professor at Creighton University and expert on ancient Stoicism, calls Yoda one of the most Stoic characters in film. But here's what's fascinating. Most people watching Star Wars have no idea they're getting a masterclass in 2,300-year-old wisdom. The Stoics, founded by Zeno in ancient Athens, believed that virtue was the only true path to happiness. They taught that our suffering comes not from external events, but from our resistance to them. That fear, when left unchecked, creates a cascade of destructive emotions that inevitably leads to our downfall. Sound familiar? Fear is the path to the dark side, Yoda tells us. Fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. This isn't just mystical Jedi wisdom. It's a precise psychological diagnosis that modern therapists are rediscovering today. But Yoda's genius lies in how he teaches the solution. Quick question for the regulars. Are you team do or do not, or team size matters not? Drop your favorite Yoda-ism below. Remember the scene where Luke is balancing stones while doing a handstand? Everything's going perfectly until his mind wanders. The stones crash down. Yoda's response? Concentrate. This isn't about supernatural powers. It's about presence. The Stoics taught that the present moment is the only place where we have any real control. Not the past, that's gone. Not the future, that's speculation. Just this moment, and what we choose to do with our attention right now. But then comes the lesson that breaks most people's brains. Luke sees his X-Wing fighter sunk in the swamp. "Master, it's too big," he protests. Yoda's reply cuts through everything. Size matters not. Luke tries to lift it with the Force and fails. "I can't," he gasps. And here's where Yoda drops the hammer. Try not. Do or do not. There is no try. On first hearing, this sounds almost cruel. What kind of teacher tells a struggling student there's no such thing as trying? But this is pure Stoic wisdom, and it's psychologically brilliant. The Stoics understood something we've forgotten. Trying is often an excuse for half-hearted commitment. When you say, "I'll try to wake up early," or "I'll try to eat better," you're already planning your escape route. You're keeping one foot in failure. Yoda demonstrates by effortlessly lifting Luke's ship from the swamp. Luke stares in disbelief. "I don't believe it." Yoda's response reveals the deepest truth. That is why you fail. This isn't about positive thinking. It's about something the Stoics called the dichotomy of control. You cannot control whether you'll succeed, but you can control whether you commit fully to the action itself. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Yoda's teaching Luke the exact same principle, just with a crashed spaceship instead of imperial politics. But the most tragic example of ignoring Stoic wisdom plays out across the entire Star Wars saga. Anakin Skywalker had everything. Talent, opportunity, a mentor who literally gave him the blueprint for emotional mastery. Yoda explicitly warns him, attachment leads to jealousy, the shadow of greed, that is. Train yourself to let go of everything you fear to lose. Could the instruction be clearer? The young Jedi is getting direct teaching from an 800-year-old master about the psychological trap that will destroy him. But Anakin can't hear it. His fear of losing Padmé becomes all-consuming. That fear breeds anger at his perceived powerlessness. The anger curdles into hatred of the Jedi Council, of Obi-Wan, of anyone who might stand between him and control. And that hatred creates the very suffering he was trying to avoid. Anakin doesn't just fall to the dark side. He becomes the instrument of Padmé's death. The thing he feared most, he makes happen through his resistance to that fear. This is what the Stoics meant when they said our suffering comes from fighting reality instead of accepting it. Anakin couldn't accept that loss is part of life. His refusal to practice the discipline of desire, wanting what happens, turned him into the galaxy's greatest monster. But here's what makes this even more devastating. Palpatine knew exactly which emotional buttons to push. A person gripped by fear becomes incredibly easy to manipulate. When you're desperate to control outcomes, you'll make deals with anyone who promises you that control. The Stoics warned about this too. Epictetus taught that emotional reactivity makes us slaves, not to external circumstances, but to anyone clever enough to trigger those reactions. Anakin's fear didn't just corrupt him, it made him a puppet. Compare this to Yoda's own death. The ancient master faces mortality with what can only be described as equanimity. No rage against the dying of the light. No desperate bargains for more time. He even makes jokes. When 900 years old you reach, look as good you will not. This is Stoic death, accepting the natural order while maintaining dignity and even humor. Yoda demonstrates that wisdom isn't about avoiding loss. It's about maintaining your character while loss happens around you. And here's what's fascinating. Ryan Holiday discovered the exact same principle 40 years later. In his book, The Obstacle is the Way, Holiday breaks down the Stoic practice of turning problems into opportunities. His core teaching? Focus completely on your effort and response while releasing attachment to the outcome. Holiday writes, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This is Yoda's "size matters not," translated for modern audiences. The obstacle isn't the problem. Your judgment about the obstacle is the problem. This isn't just ancient philosophy. Modern psychology validates it completely. Acceptance and commitment therapy, ACT, has proven that people who practice psychological flexibility, accepting difficult emotions while committing to valued action, show dramatically better mental health outcomes than those who fight their feelings. Now for the 2-minute practice. Open your notes app or grab paper. You're going to map your own fear to suffering chain like Yoda taught us. Write this sentence and fill it in. My biggest fear right now is... Be specific. Not failure, but failing this presentation on Friday. Now complete this sequence. This fear makes me angry, controlling, avoidant. That behavior creates conflict, procrastination, isolation, which leads to the very outcome I feared. Finally, write, if I accepted this fear without fighting it, I would... Pause the video and do this now. It takes 2 minutes and shows you exactly where your emotional reactivity is creating your suffering. Here's the principle in one line. Fear becomes suffering only when we resist the fear itself. Here's what to try. Map your fear chain, then commit to the action while releasing the outcome. Just like Yoda taught Luke with that X-Wing. The Stoics were right. Yoda was right. And now you have the tools to prove it to yourself. Now I'm curious, which Yoda lesson hit you harder? Do or do not, there is no try. Or train yourself to let go of everything you fear to lose. Drop your answer like this. Lesson. How I'll apply it. If you want more ancient wisdom with modern application, subscribe. We post daily. Until next time, may the Force be with you. But more importantly, may the Stoics be with you too.